Hello everyone. Welcome back. Today we're going to be working on a Crown Victoria here, and we're going to be putting new coils on it. This has the coil on each cylinder, and I bought a new set off of the internet, so let's get started. Furthermore, this Crown Victoria, like all of them there, it is the 4.6 engine. And again, the first thing we're going to start, which is easy, we're going to take this cover off the top of the engine. And this just requires a 1/4 inch drive. I'm using an extension and no socket or nothing. It's designed that the extension fits right into the screw that holds the engine cover on. And there's no doubt about the 4.6 liter engine, because look at that, it's stamped right into the engine cover. Ford Motor Company was proud of the fact. And we'll turn this out. It turns in a long ways. It's fine thread, and it seems like it takes forever to turn this. Considering no more than it's holding, it seems overkill, but it's not going to vibrate loose too quick and fly off. And once we get this loosened up front of the engine, you'll see here, there's two metal hooks that slides into the cover, and then just lift it up and off, and that much is taken care of. Now you can see everything on top of the engine. In addition, there's only one more thing that really needs to come up before we start actually changing the coils, is this air duct. And that's a 5/16 or an 8mm will work to undo these clamps. Loosen the one down here at the air cleaner behind the mass airflow sensor first. Yeah, I made a decision to change all of them at one time. I got a good price on these coils because I kept occasionally having one go bad here and there and buying single ones at a time. And after I got this deal on them, I ended up getting all of them for not much more than I was paying for one. Now we're going to take and loosen the air duct back at the throttle body, same socket, and there you can see a close up where it goes. Again, real easy, nothing. This whole project is something that's not real hard to do, other than getting down to a few of the coils itself, but they're not the end of the world. And then just unhook these breather tubes out of the air duct to just basically pull out. Try to be careful not to, especially like that, when that part plastic will crack and break easy, but I got it with no problem. And then just pull this off the throttle body first, and it's coming no problem. And then we'll pull it off the air cleaner end down below, and we'll just lay that to the side while we keep working. Okay, the next step, I'm going to unhook the wire, just push up on the clip and pull straight back once it's released. And this is cylinder number 5, or the clear front one on the driver's side. And it's a 7mm socket that holds this bolt that holds the coil. And I'm using which I'm going to get a ratchet later. I was using this like a palm ratchet I bought at Harbor Freight to loosen it, but it was fairly snug. Okay, finished. Give it a couple more turns, and then I'm going to take and grab down into it in a second and grab it with my fingers so I don't drop the bolt. They do fall out of the coil, I'll warn you of that. And there is the bolt out. And now the coil and the boot, with a little luck, should just pull up out. And yep, there is number 5 out. Furthermore, I'm only putting these coils on. I did spark plugs around a year ago in the car without buying all the coils. And there is my new coil. And we'll put this in the next step, just giving you an overview of it. And it's pretty much just work it down in. And you can feel, once you get it down on the spark plug, you want to give it a little, shove it on good and tight till you put the bolt in. And then the bolt will, here in a second, pull it the rest of the way in. Okay, and as I did when I had taken it out, I'm going to start the bolt in, take and grab it, and I'm just going to set it down in here with my fingers and get it started, and then we'll put the socket on it. One trick you can do, I didn't do it on this, I didn't think it was a necessity. You can, if you're having difficulty starting the bolt in with your fingers, and of course just the socket itself is going to want to fall out, you can take a bit of grease on the head of the bolt and put it in the end of the socket to hold it to start. But again, I'm doing it this way, and it's no problem on it. It's working just fine, and the rest will be done the same way throughout the whole job. Furthermore, there probably is an exact torque spec on it, But condensed answer, I'm not going to torque to an exact spec, but they don't need real tight. The bolts are small, they snap, and also those nuts are like molded into like plastic nut, and you don't want to strip them out. Okay, there's the first one done. Now we're going to unhook the wire, and we're going to do cylinder number 6, which is the second one back on the driver's side. You do take notice how Ford designed the fuel rail. They did make it easy on you because it lets you put the extension straight down on the bolt, how it's like curves back in around the fuel rail right there. But on the other hand, when you go to pull the coil out, you do have to wiggle and jiggle to get the coil out from under the fuel rail. But again, you don't need to remove the fuel rail or anything. And there's bolt number 2. And that's out. And just again, you can see they're a pretty long bolt, but they're extremely fine thread. And then we'll just give this, see, sometimes they'll pull off real easy and sometimes not, but that one did come off not a problem, and the boot came along with it, which is good. And now we'll stick the new coil back down in, just as we did on the first one. Yeah, don't lose patience when you're putting those coils in. It just takes, again, the right turn and angle, but eventually you'll get it. And there finally it goes down in under the fuel rail. That's the biggest thing that's making it a little tricky now, is the fuel rail. And this one is not the hardest one yet, by no means. That will be over on the other side when we get there. But anyhow, I'm trying to get in with the camera here as good as I can to show you. But there we have the bolt started in. Now we can just take our ratchet and extension and we'll tighten another one up. And that'll be soon 2 done. I'm trying to show you and let you hear the ratchet. Once you get it basically just barely past finger tight, give it like another about quarter of a turn, and that's all it takes. And they're making sure the wire snapped into place good, and it did. Now we'll take and remove the next wire, and here we're ready to do the third one. Furthermore, on this one, and I don't know why I didn't earlier, I did switch here to the 1/4" drive ratchet. That last one I used the 3/8 drive, but it's easier to get down in, especially this one. You're going in front of where that air duct had hooked to, and along with the fuel rail. And I'm probably using about a 1-foot-long extension. Okay, and it's turning right out, nice as can be. You can hear the puff of victory. We succeeded at pulling it out. And here goes the new one down in. And on this, I will, like all my repair videos, I'll include timestamps for whatever cylinder if you want to just need to know something on one of them. Which this size, probably not anyone's really that interested. They're fairly easy to do, but perhaps the next side. But I will include timestamps on each cylinder as I do them, since I'm going to be showing them all till I'm done with the video. Come on. Alrighty, there's the third one done, and we just finished, if you're counting, cylinder number 7, and this is cylinder number 8 on the car. Again, the ones on the left or the driver's side of the car, or from the front to back, are 5, 6, 7, and 8, the cylinders. And there we're getting the last one here, and this one's a little bit back in the corner, a little harder to access, but still not too bad. I was having trouble pulling it out. I was trying to get my hand out of the way for the camera that you could see it pulling up out of the car, the coil, but sorry about that. And now we're putting the replacement into the Again, the last one on the driver's side. And when you're doing this, if like the fuel injectors, which like I say the coils sit between, are in your way, you can carefully, like usually just they'll push a little bit one way or the other. You can just give them a little gently, not break them, and get them out of your way if you have to. If the wire connector for the injector is over top or in the way to get the bolt for the coil, and there we're getting the bolt tightened up as with the other ones. Alrighty, this concludes the ones on the driver's side. Now we're going to switch and move over to the passenger side and start with the front one, which is cylinder number 1. And again, just as before, unhook the wire first. And we're going to be removing the bolt next. And you can see I'm showing you have to access the bolt on this one with the long extension right down between the fuel lines where they hook into the fuel rail that come up from the fuel tank. But not a problem, they do give you enough room to do that. Now I'll admit it is a little bit tricky here to reach down under the lines to get the bolt up, but again it's still, I'm showing you, you can see it does work. There's enough clearance. And indeed there's the bolt out. Now we just have to reach in and, as before, pull the coil out a little bit. The rest of them on this side is not as accessible as the ones on the driver's side, but they do come out. But there are more items. This is just the start on this side, but it gets worse before it gets better. And of course, look at that. That one the boot stayed put. I didn't get the proper pull on it, which isn't the end of the world if you have a long pair of needle nose pliers like I'm going to use here. Just going to reach down and grab a hold of the boot and pull it up out, and there it is. Thank goodness it didn't break off down in there, and it's all out. Now we'll put the new coil in. Okay, and then we'll start it in. I'm having a little trouble putting this one in with the fuel lines and the fuel rail in combination, but you sort of just got to give it like a little turn one way or the other until it does go into place, and that's about where it needs to be, and we can soon put the bolt back in. Furthermore, if you have any particular questions, as always, drop them down in the comments below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. I do at times have a busy schedule, but I try to check as often as possible. Okay, and there's back in, and we're going to tighten the bolt back up just as before. Alrighty, if you've been keeping track, we're working on the 6th coil right now. After this, we only have 2 to go. And there's the wire unplugged, and there you can see what I was saying earlier. I did that one fuel injector. I just sort of pushed it a little bit out of the way off to the side, which gave me all the clearance I needed to access the bolt. Reach in and try to get this one out, and it's doing like the earlier one up front. It's not coming real easy, and again another one that the boot stuck in, but we know how to handle that. And there's a better view of again grabbing it with the needle nose pliers and pulling it out free, and there we go. And if you take notice there, I didn't show it in the video, I did unhook the PVC vacuum while it was working right there, which it just pulls right off, not a problem. And I'll, again, when I'm done, be putting it back on, but I just wanted to point that out. If you pull yours off, which you're going to when you're working on your car, why I'm even mentioning it, if you do forget to hook it back up, don't panic if when you start the car it's running roughly and not idling good, because it's going to, again, cause you a vacuum leak. And then, again, just go back and check it. Sort of just a little side note on the project. Okay, and now we're just going to, as before, we can reach down in here and tighten it up with the extension and the ratchet, and we have 2 more to go yet. And as I had mentioned earlier, the farther we go back on this side, none of them were as easy as on the driver's side, but every one farther back towards the firewall keeps getting more difficult, but not impossible. And then once we get past this one, the last one is the worst of the worst. Okay, and they're both out. Now let's see if we can pull this one out and see what happens, if it's going to all come or we're going to have the boot stick on the spark plug like the last 2. The further back I'd sooner they wouldn't stick fast, and you can see on that it's harder to reach in, but it's out and the boot did come with it, which that saves a little aggravation. And we'll just slip the new one down in. Yeah, personally, I like the days of the older cars where you had just basically one coil for everything, but this seems to be the wave of the future. I know everything I own that I use as a daily driver has this same coil on plug set up except for one vehicle, and that's 1998, so that sort of don't go in the heading of a real late model. Although this is not a lot newer, it's a 2001. Okay, it's in, and now we're going to tighten the bolt back up as before. And then we'll have the grand finale here after we tighten this and put the wire back on with the one clearing the back, cylinder number 4. Yeah, on the good news, I will admit on this coil on plug and a coil for each cylinder, one thing good, if one fails, which I've had them fail, that again, like I told you, that's why I'm putting all the new ones on, was replacing one here and there, but at least the car will still run a little mess. In the old days, with just the old single coil, I've been left sitting about 2 or 3 times with coils failing on old cars. So I guess you have to look at the plus and minus. But on the other hand, the old coils were usually under $20, and you only needed one. And of course, I did get a good deal on these. I don't remember exactly what I paid, but I'll try to link it in the description if I can find a link for it. Okay, there are the wires unhooked from the last coil in the back, and you can see, it's hard to even see down behind the heater hoses, the fuel rail, and everything else hidden at the back of the engine. And I hope, and this is a warning, no matter what, when I reach in and grab this bolt, but try not to drop it, because that would be hard to find. But I did get mine out without dropping it. Now if I can get the coil out. Yeah, if you drop it back there, it's probably not going to fall the whole way to the ground. It's going to stick up on the wiring harness or something up around the bell housing of the transmission. But there is the last one out, and luckily too the boot came out. Now we try to show you as good as I can. You can't even really see this good where this goes, this cylinder number 4. Again, this is the challenge of the whole every one on the car. The rest aren't that bad, but this one is a little bit on the tricky side. I'm going to do as good as I can to show you where it's out. Here, I'll help you a little bit more. I'll pull the wiring harness up a little so you see the location of the coil on that cylinder back in the rear. Okay, now that it's in, we can take and stick our bolt in as before. And again, same warning, try not to drop it back there. Furthermore, by pulling the wiring back, it helped get the bolt in, but now that the bolt's actually started in, now I want to put it back where it goes to get the socket and the extension down in on it to tighten it up into place. Okay, and if you noticed here, this is even a little tricky to plug the wire back in. But once it goes on, and again, remember these only go on one way, and you should be able to shove it back into place. And I'm going to say just about that's good enough. And try to check it to make sure it is latched in so it doesn't fall off while you're driving the car. Okay, now we just have to put the air duct back on, and we're about completed on the whole project. Furthermore, I find it simpler if you put the air duct back on the throttle body before you put it on the air cleaner first. And if you see it has like that lip that sticks out in the rubber of the air duct. It sits up above where it's molded into the aluminum housing on the throttle body. You can sort of basically, it only will go one way, and there slid back on the air cleaner. And now we can just take and tighten those back up after first we're going to hook up these breather tubes. And on this other breather tube, I pulled it off the valve cover when I was working. But now, again, in theory, I'll say if it's for everybody probably going to comment, why didn't you put this one in before the other? And it probably would have been easier since the other one does sit over top. But anyhow, now you know to do it the other way, it's easier. But I'll still work it down in behind, and it'll go up into place just like about here any second now. And don't forget again to tighten this air duct, because that's another one of those things the car will run, but a lot of times if they're not tightened up right, they'll run rough and you'll think something else is really major, especially after replacing all these coils, when it's just the fact you forgot to tighten these clamps. Again, another little note worth mentioning to take note of. And now we'll put the engine cover back on, just sort of opposite of how it came off. There's just one more view. That needs pushed back on a little more. There's again little metal brackets that the cover has holes cut out that slide in through those brackets. And then once we get this lined up, which can be a little bit tricky, not a big deal, but we got it. Then turn and turn and turn. Again, this is a fine thread bolting that's long. It seems to take forever till it ever tightens up into place. Well, I hope you found this informative. We're about finished up here on this. Once I tighten this, we'll take care one time. We'll start the car and just make sure it's running smooth. But I hope you found this informative. And again, thank you for watching and consider subscribing. And here we will start the car up and we'll let you hear at once how it's running.